Hi, friends. God is so good, God, friends. I mean, He's so amazing. So, I love how sometimes, and I believe, God lets the devil test you to see. It's basically a test, and you have to make sure you pass the test. He will let the devil tempt you, and things will happen, a test to see if you do still trust God. You know, it's the test. A lot of times it's meant to renew your heart, to build you, um, for you to rely on Him, to build trust in Him on whatever happens. It's to renew your heart, to build you, and to know to trust in Him no matter what happens. So you have to just believe in the Lord no matter what you're going through and say, Lord, I don't care what journey I go through, good or bad. If this is the plan that you have for me, I'm okay with it. I know I'm okay with it because I know you'll get me out of it, and you're doing this for a reason. It's for my purpose. It's to better me. It's to open my eyes about something. It's to renew my heart, renew my soul, open my eyes, build me. It's for your purpose. Whether it's hardship, maybe your story is for a bigger purpose, you know? So then you can share your testimony later. All of it is for a purpose, and it's part of His plan, and it's so beautiful, and you have to make sure you pass the test. So if you're going through hardship or anything like that, you have to make sure that you pass the test and say to God, you know, I trust you, Lord. Whatever you put, that's why I say all the time, whatever journey you put me through, for good or bad, I trust you. Because I know if this is where my Heavenly Father wants me to be, and this is where I'm going to be. I'm okay with it. You know, I know, Lord, you provide for me. I know you care for me, and you'll always be there for me. If this is where you want me to be, this is where I'm going to be. But help my flesh be okay. And when I have moments where I'm doubting, please, God, help me remember to keep coming back to you and to be centered with you, like to be focused on you. Help my flesh do that, because human nature, sometimes we go the other direction. It's easy to get distracted, right? And a lot of times God will test you. He will let the devil test you to see if you practice what you preach. Such a blessing. Such a blessing. It's so amazing. So before we get started on that, so we had a baptism at my church yesterday, right? I was at the baptism. It was from we were there at 3:45 to help, and we left like at 9:30, 10 o'clock. So our service at our church, I help with the baptism, part of the baptism team. So we usually have up to 60 people getting baptized, all three services total, 60, right? That's the normal. When we had the beach baptism, we had it at the beach at Allen Creek. We have a creek here in Ohio, and we had a baptism. We had over 150 people baptized, triple what we used to get, right? And it's so amazing. They were telling me the story of how the beach baptism started. I was asking about it, and they were like, oh, it started because it was during COVID and we couldn't be that close. So we had three people sign up during COVID because we still wanted to baptize them. And the ones that felt comfortable to be baptized, we just told them to come in the water, and it was freezing cold. That's what the pastor was telling us, right? So I was like, oh, okay. I was like, it's so amazing how on average we usually have 60 people being baptized, right? For 3 services. And for the baptism this year, we end up having over 150 people baptized. I was like, it's so amazing how it was during COVID, and what the devil meant for harm, God turned it around, right? He turned it around and said, okay, you're used to doing 60. This COVID, because of COVID, we had to go out on the beach and do it. And now it's a tradition. We do that once a year as a tradition. You see how amazing how something tragedy. It was a tragedy because it was the COVID, right? So we had no choice but to do it at the beach. And then once we start going to the beach, we had so much fun. It ended up being a tradition. Isn't that amazing? How God turns around what the devil meant for bad. He turns it around for good, right? Not only did God turn around the fact that we had to go to the beach because of COVID, He made it into, or now it's our tradition. We do it every year, and we triple the amount of people that's getting baptized. You see how amazing how they turned that around? Like how he just turned that around? I was like, and then we had people that weren't even assigned to get baptized, just regular beachgoers. They wanted to be baptized. So we added them on there too. So it's so amazing how when the devil is doing something that's meant to be bad, God can turn it around for good. It's such a blessing, you know. We're so used to saving 60 people. He turned it around. Now it's 150 people, right? Because that became a tradition. Everybody wanted to do the beach because of it was just a fun environment being the beach. So they loved it. So I'm like, it's so amazing how you end up like tripling amount of souls that you're saving. It's such a blessing how something because of tragedy, that's why we had to do it at the beach, end up being a blessing, right? Isn't that so amazing? It's so amazing. And a lot of times too, like I was saying, you know, the scripture says lean not to your understanding. A lot of times we don't understand things, and the devil will test you, and God will let the devil test you sometimes to see if you practice what you preach too. Like, you know, if I'm teaching you guys about taming the tongue, if I'm teaching you guys about forgiveness and love your neighbors, it puts me into test too. Someone that will try to trigger you, someone that brings whatever out of you, test you. And I have to remember the Bible verse sometimes, because, you know, you're human flesh. You're human in the day. So a perfect example of that is at the baptism. This girl I was working with at the baptism, right? She was, I don't know, she came out of nowhere. And she came out of nowhere and she brought up how she had the worst prom date in high school, which was 20 years ago. I was like, why are we talking about prom? It came out of nowhere. You're going to see how much this works. Like how much his timing, his plan all comes along. So she was saying how, I went to prom. No one was even talking about prom. She came out of nowhere. She was telling me and another girl, oh, I went to prom. I had the worst experience. I was like, that was random. It was random. And I was like, okay. And she's like, my date was like the worst date, worst experience. And then I was like, okay. And she ended up being one of the line leaders. So she's the one that's baptizing people and she prays over them. So she's pretty, she's like one of the leads. She's like a lead prayer and she baptized. So she's pretty significant in her role. She has a big role. So I was like, okay. And she always prays over people. She's part of the prayer team. She's like amazing. I love her. But this day, you're not going to believe what happened. So she's like, yeah, I had the worst prom day. I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm in line. My job was to hand them the towels. I'm in line. And then one of my friends comes, a male friend who we all do Bible study with. We see each other at the church and stuff like that. One of my not best friend, but like my buddy from the church, right? Guys and girls. This happened to be a guy. So he gets baptized and everything. And then later on, she tells me, she says his name. It's my friend. I was like, you're talking about him? He's the nicest guy. She couldn't believe it. She was like, he is? I was like, yeah, he's been serving here. She's like, I didn't even know. She said, he came up. What are the odds that she just mentioned him? He came up in line. He wasn't even on her list to get baptized. He ended up being on her list to get baptized. She's the one that's going to baptize him. She has to pray over him. And she was just talking about how the worst, she seemed like she was traumatized. Whatever he did in the past 20 years ago, she was traumatized about it because the way she speaks about it. And what are the odds that he ended up being on her line? He was not on her list. He was a last minute add-on, and she had to pray over him and baptize him. Can you see how the devil was trying to, you see how God will let you use the devil's test? Like he'll let the devil test you to see what you practice, because she's a line leader. She's a part of the prayer team, right? So she has to be an example, right? So if she has so much, like if she's angry towards him, she can't really show that. I mean, not show that, but that part has to go away for her to be able to pray over him, right? And she was like, God was testing me today. And I passed the test, because how am I supposed to pray over him if I'm still upset with him or I'm traumatized with what happened? I was like, exactly. The scripture says 70 times, you have to forgive for 70 times 7. And if you forgive them, you have to treat them like if you forgive them. So she felt like it was a test from God to see, you know, you're a prayer leader. you're praying over people, you're baptizing them, but do you truly forgive this man? Or maybe you need to forgive this guy. And she was telling me like how he was, and I was like, from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, everybody changes. Like, I'm not the same as when I was 18 now. Like, we're totally different people. And I was telling her, I don't know what guy you're describing, but the guy I've known for 4 or 5 months, he's a good Christian guy. He comes in with his Bible, he brings in, he takes notes, he sings, he puts his hands up to receive, he has his highlights, he volunteers. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah. And she volunteers too, but hers is not as frequent. Hers is like once a month in the blue moon. So that's why she never ran into him. She's like, well, what service do you go to? I was like, he goes to the morning service with us. And she couldn't believe it because we were describing 2 different people. And I was like, the guy you're describing, maybe God changed his heart. Plus that was 15, 20 years ago. People are changed, right? You have to be able to forgive. I thought it was so fascinating how God put him in her life, in her line, to pray over him, to say, hey, if you're following me, about forgiveness and trust, you need to forgive this man. Isn't that so amazing how that worked out? And then what are the odds that she told, out of all the people in the church, hundreds of people, she was telling me about it, who I know the person he is today. And I'm able to speak on his behalf on the person that he is today. Isn't that amazing how God put us together for me to say, no, maybe that's the old guy, old person. But this new person that I know, at least, is not like that. It's not like that. I think you just got like before he came to Christ, maybe. I don't know. I started get more serious into Christ 7 years ago. So I'm not the same from 7 years ago, 10 years ago. So 15 years ago, we're not the same people. And I was trying to explain that to her. And I was like, well, give him a chance, and he's not going to be the same person. And I even asked her, I was like, are you the same person 15 years ago? She's like, no. I was like, exactly. I hope we would evolve and get better. And she was like, you sure he comes in with a Bible? He does Bible study? I was like, yeah, he does. He's in our group, and he's a nice guy. He prays with us. And I don't know the guy that you're describing. It's so amazing how, I was like, it's so fascinating how out of all these people that God made you tell me that story. So I can tell you how he is today. Because no one else probably know him, right? It's such a beautiful story. And it's so beautiful how out of all those people there, 150 people, we had 4 lines. A, B, C, D, yeah, 4 lines. Out of those 4 lines, he came to her line. Like, what are the odds of that? Isn't that so amazing? That's so amazing. Like, it's so amazing how everything works out. It's such a beautiful story. She's like, God was testing me because he was saying, if you're going to pray over this man, you need to forgive him. And because she said he felt like he was testing her heart. Because if you're supposed to be a certain way, and you're supposed to be Christ-like, and you're supposed to love your enemies, pray for those persecute you, what are you doing when you're being tested? You got to pass the test. We got to make sure we pass the test, right? Even if someone hates us, wants us to fail, wants you to lose your job, whatever it might be, you have to love them. And all of that is for you, to be honest, because it gives you peace. Like, you're not carrying around resentment. You're not carrying around any anger, and you have internal peace at all times, right? That's what I do. If someone dislikes me, I still love them. I pray for them. I say, please, God, open up their eyes, protect them, guide them, forgive them for their sins, and help them realize how they're coming off with someone to other people. Give them peace, give them healing, help them overcome their struggles, love them, protect them. And then you have to treat them like you forgive them. Like, if I see the person again, they say, hey, Vanessa, I have to say, hey, how are you doing? I have to talk to them like I forgive them, right? Because he looks at our heart. You got to look at your heart. So if your heart's still like, you're looking at them like you don't forgive them, he looks at your heart. You can't pretend. He can read our heart. All right, bye, friends.